But so we had a brief chat just off camera. You were saying that you had an experience with the right wing, and you were with them, and then somehow your perspective has changed. Unpack that for me. Tell me a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, to say that I was right wing and I'm not anymore would be misleading, because basically I found out I was being lied to by these people. The concerns are really about mass immigration, which is not just about the amount of immigrants coming in, it is also the birth rate of the native population and the fact they're not having babies. Now, what I believe these actors have been told to do, and they're being paid to do, is to scapegoat Muslims. So this fear gets directed explicitly and exclusively at Islam and Muslims through characters like Tommy Robinson, Douglas Murray, etc., to basically make people like me terrified of people like you. Now, if they were honest actors, if they were just British patriots who were really, really concerned about the proliferation of Islam throughout Europe because it seems to be pushing us white people or Christians out, maybe that would be legitimate, maybe that would be a legitimate concern. But they're not like that, because they're completely uncritical of the actions of Israel. Now, I may not be able to prove the paper trail here, but if I were able to prove the paper trail there, that would be treason. It would be treason to agitate against your own government while being paid by another one that you're completely silent on. So it's realizing that these guys are not legitimate. They are spies, they are actors, and you can see it this week if you look at footage of Tommy Robinson being interviewed. First of all, he's itching on cocaine. He's got withdrawal symptoms the whole way through, and his hands are doing this kind of weird stuff. So I don't think anyone should be looking up to someone like that, because there's no such thing as ethical cocaine. You can't get cocaine that hasn't been produced from child labour, etc. That's only just one little element of it. But he's been ripping off pensioners by tapping into their fears for so long, and the whole thing is just so dark. I think it's only to manufacture consent for the genocide in Palestine, get native British people to not see Muslims as people and therefore not see Palestinians as people, see them as barbarians, etc. And I'm sick of it. I think it's disgusting.
I'm sure a lot of people watching, they're going to be thinking, this is staged. Nick is just an undercover lefty who is just trying to discourage our leader supreme, Tommy Robinson, who is trying to solve legitimate issues with this country with regards to grooming, with regards to migration, with regards to Islam. And what would you respond to that?
I would say you're completely correct. Their stock response is to just yell lefty, which doesn't make any sense with me, because I've been interviewing people that call themselves right-wing or a nationalist, and specifically people who've been banned off YouTube or called far-right, because I don't place a lot of stock in that buzzword. I wanted to get a definition. What is far-right? Because everyone is being branded far-right. What does it mean? Now, a few weeks ago, it
Are there any people you've interviewed that we're familiar with?
Yeah, Nick Griffin, Jada Franson.
Is Nick Griffin banned from social media?
Yes, Nick Griffin is not allowed on Twitter at the time when everyone else was allowed back.
He's on Twitter, isn't he?
He was on Twitter.
Recently as well.
Yeah, he was tweeting a lot about Gaza, and he was getting a lot of support from Muslims.
Yeah.
And then, in fact,
He should do. On that point.
Well, no, I mean, people strawman Nick Griffin and they think he believes things that he doesn't believe. I've been told by people in Speaker's Corner that he wants the world to be a white ethno-state. And I'm like, no, he doesn't. No, he doesn't at all. He's actually very learned on geopolitics and what matters to which country. And
so he's banned now, yeah?
Maybe he just wants the UK to be in
a slightly weird thing happened. He wasn't actually banned for hate speech or whatever, or anything. His account got hacked, and so he couldn't log into it anymore. And they're refusing to sort it out and help him,
right.
Which is quite different. It's not. There was never any offence. He never tweeted anything where they said that's hate speech, you need to go. His account got hacked and they won't help him get it back. And just the timing of it is so interesting, because I'm sure people have loaded expectations of BNP and Nick Griffin, etc. But objectively, he is the most successful politician in British history representing that view, until Nigel Farage, who I believe is paid by these guys to zip it. And so he is a voice that we need in the conversation because he was representing millions of people. People can believe that what they believe is immoral, but they still get a vote. And so it is still a voice.
With regards to Tommy Robinson and his Zionist connection, tell me more about that. Like, what was the impetus and what made that link apparent to you? Because it's not apparent to a lot of people.
It's a great question, that, because it keeps happening with the Tommy Robinson movement. It's not one static thing where they keep the same fans forever. People bail out of the Tommy Robinson movement in pretty regular stages because they realise something isn't right. And for me, it was in 2019, Tommy Robinson was supposed to be releasing a documentary series called The Rape of Britain, which is about young girls being raped up and down the country. And then at this rally, which I wasn't at, I just heard about it, there was an advert on the screen for his upcoming documentary, and it was called Shalom. And it was about a Jewish man in France who was bullied so much by Muslims that he eventually died. They didn't kill him. I don't know if he committed suicide or something, but this incensed a lot of us because we were questioning, what relevance does that have? These people that are supporting Tommy Robinson because he is standing up for these poor children. And then we get given something about anti-Semitism in France. People have donated their money for his projects. And then they started noticing, hang on, Ezra Levant, Avi Yemeni, these are not British men. These are not men with any connection to Britain whatsoever. These are Jews. And eventually, and also a couple of people got kicked out of the Tommy Robinson movement for starting to ask questions about Jews, basically. Starting to post things on Twitter about, well, anything.
Who were these?
There was one woman called Shazia Hobbs. She was a writer for Tommy Robinson's website. And then she basically wrote an article about Jewish double standards, i.e. if we can say it about Muslims, can we also apply the same logic to Jews? And immediately she was removed from the team, and they even released a video as a hit piece against her, calling her a Nazi. And this was so over the top. It's like, hang on, what is this? These are just people asking questions. We're not overtly on the tin like a massively pro-Jewish movement, but apparently we are. And so what I've been doing, or what I did this year, I don't think I'll repeat it, I went down to 2 Tommy Robinson rallies to see what would happen. The first one, I got arrested in under 4 minutes for my own safety. The police escorted me out there in case they did anything to me. And then at the second one, they did actually assault me. Like you said, what do you say to people that say lefty?
Yeah.
That is what they said. Now bear in mind, I've just told you I've interviewed Nick Griffin and Jada Franson, far-right people. Tommy Robinson's stewards, because they recognised me, started screaming, "Get out of here, you lefty," which triggered his drunk fans to start kicking me. Now, they wouldn't have done that if they had been yelling the word lefty. And I'm not a lefty. So I'm really concerned about what these people feel like they can do and get away with. They feel like they can just yell words and get people to attack me. And the police haven't run me back about it. Yeah.
So with regards to Israel, like a lot of people are talking about the migrant issue here in the UK, coloured people coming and taking over British culture. I would argue that Israel and their interference in the UK is more insidious, is more dangerous and more deep-rooted than pretty much any other country.
Yep.
And I'll just give a few facts just for the basis of the audience. There's a company called Oracle. Yeah, Oracle are used by the Home Office, the Ministry of Defence, and the NHS. They look after the data of these 3 very important institutions. And there is somebody called Larry Ellison who owns Oracle. And Larry Ellison is very close buddies with Benjamin Netanyahu, to such a degree that he actually offered directorship of Oracle to Benjamin Netanyahu. And he's Larry Ellison, he's a very big funder of the Friends of the IDF also. Very big funder. Celebrite. Don't know if you've heard of Celebrite. The police use it to hack phones. Yeah, and Celebrite, it's owned by Israeli intelligence. More specifically, forerunners called the Unit 8200. Yeah. So, and in fact, the owner of Celebrite was boasting as well and saying we have remote control access to this data.
Yeah.
So bear in mind, this is data that the police has got from civilians. Then you've got NICE systems as well. NICE systems is owned, well, it looks after data from the Foreign Office, and the police also uses in their investigations. And the owner of NICE systems, in fact, the people that own NICE systems, they own Israel's biggest arms company, Elbit Systems also. And last but not least,
It goes on.
yeah, this is actually got from Low-Key.
Loki's so good.
And that's what you probably could tell because he's very good at kind of following the trail.
Details. Yeah, exactly. I always defer to him. If people say, how can you prove it? I just go watch a Loki video.
Yeah. If you look at BT is British Telecom. I mean, as British as it gets. And the owner is somebody called Patrick Drahi. And Patrick Drahi is somebody that owns I-24, which is the Israeli news channel that perpetrated that lie, or that was the starting of the lie of the 40 beheaded babies. That was Patrick Drahi. And I-24 has been used, it's a company set up by Haaretz as something close to Netanyahu, a Netanyahu family. And of course, he supports organizations that are building on settlements as well. So this is just in case somebody's watching and thinking, oh, a Muslim and a lefty talking about stuff that they don't understand. So this is a bit of information that they can check up as well, with regards to the origins and the tentacles. I don't want to be anti-Semitic.
Don't go mentioning octopuses.
Or
Greta.
let's just say the web.
Yeah.
The web of influence that Israel has, not the Jews, that Israel has in British society.
I mean, we will probably differ on this. I have no issue with using the phrase the Jews, and I actually think it's essential that we do, because I do not mean all Jews when I say the Jews. And I'm demonstrating at Speaker's Corner how much people react when you use those two words together. Dave Chappelle had a great routine about it, saying anyone who ever used these two words together got in severe trouble. But they shouldn't, because you don't, when you talk about the British, the Chinese, no, it's never implied that you're talking about every British peasant if you're talking about what the British Empire did. So
if you don't mind, if you have time.
I try and use the word Jews instead of Zionist and Israeli, because a lot of people make excuses, and I honestly think that's how they get away with it. I have so many people saying, not everyone in the IDF is Jewish, how dare you? And I'm like, well, I think most of them are. I think the vast majority of them are. Oh, Israel and Jews aren't the same thing. Okay, but Israel is definitely full of Jews, isn't it? Definitely got a lot of Jews in it.
There was somebody called Shulamit Aloni.
Yeah.
Shulamit Aloni used to be in the cabinet, is the Israeli cabinet, and she won the Israel 2000 prize as well.
Yeah.
Yeah? It's a very prestigious prize in Israel. She said anti-Semitism? What anti-Semitism? It's a trick.
It's a trick. I remember this quote.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a trick
We
to
always use it.
divert any criticism, legitimate criticism towards Zionist Israel.
Yes, I mean it is, and I think at Speaker's Corner we really get to show it off.
You know what?
It's
I think a lot of people are walking past.
Yeah, what is this even for? I wanted to say one more thing.
Where's Abdul Karim? He's gone. Because we could have maybe gone to a quieter spot.
It was just
Because I think it's really, it's really
I
annoying.
know, yeah, you're right, but
if
anyway.
it's still picking it up, the one last thing I wanted to say was about you were describing the tentacles, if we can use that. I really want to get this point across to people. I think that Muslims are the scapegoat of this, and so the white guys are told there's loads of Muslims here and they want to impose Sharia law, and they are told Sharia law is coming down the line, and not only that, you should fear it because it's scary and they'll behead you and whatever. And this problem that's coming down the line, I think distracts from the fact that we are already occupied. I think it works complete cover, and no one really looks at it because they're looking over there at this perceived problem that is in the future, not the problem that we actually very, very clearly have. But they're very clever in terms of, like, I think the thing with Islam is that it's so obvious. You guys have beards and wear hijabs, and you have mosques and you pray, and so we can see it.
No, it's alright for now.
You
Because I think, yeah.
You can't see Zionism. You, like, a Tommy Robinson supporter, there are no clues that there's anything untoward going on here, 'cause it's so well hidden. It took me years to actually discover, wait, what is Zionism? How does Tommy Robinson relate to Zionism?
Have you seen the clip in which he goes, if there was ever a war, I would be on the side of Israel, because why not?
Yeah, and that is now evidenced by what's been going on the last 10 months. He's been pushing out propaganda for Israel, so he is very literally fighting the war for Israel. He may not be there with a gun, but he's quite a key part of it, because he's probably the main guy in Britain trying to drum up support for this nonsense, at least among a certain demographic. And yeah, it's criminal. And not only that, he's scammed so many people. He commits crimes every time he does anything. He broke his bail conditions to broadcast that film a couple of months ago. And I think it's quite sad about the British people who support him, because they've just got such low standards. They don't like people like me coming along and saying, can you not do better? Can you not? We've discussed this a lot last week, is that they point at the Muslims as bad people, and the Muslims are quite obviously living a more faith-filled life. So is there actually a bit of insecurity going on here? Because there's no part of me that wants to fix any of these problems by going and looting Sainsbury's. Right?
Greg's.
And yeah, by going and stealing a load of steak bakes. That's not a very valid way to express your condolences to
Finding a Citizens Advice Bureau.
It's just,
that ironically helps the people in the area.
Yeah, and it shows that these guys have no direction, because they're not doing something productive. What did I do the day after the race riots? I came down here, stood on my box, and had a conversation with the public to see what we're going to do. What we're going to do. Because I don't want to end up in a situation where I'm expected to fight you. I think that's very unreasonable. I think this is a better path through. And so that's what I'm doing. But I believe I'm only doing that because I'm coming to it from a place of faith. And I have a theological framework around this conflict or genocide. Whereas I think these boys are white. And they see themselves as white, and white doesn't have a faith attached to it. You're just a white boy, and that's not anchored to any meaning or moral code. And that means you can justify smashing up the Sainsbury's because you're fed up of Muslims, even though that makes no sense. That's not a legitimate political action. Yeah, I think it's because they've identified as white instead of Christian. They've got no sense of morality, and Tommy Robinson will never tell them off. He'll never step in after they've done something awful like that and say, boys, you took that too far, I'm ashamed of you. He'll never do that.
Out of interest, with regards to when you were in that group, the right wing, would you say far right, right wing?
I would actually, a few years ago, these were known as the civic nationalists, because Nick Griffin and Jada Franson and that kind of wing, we are people, I count myself as one of them, genuinely, people that do not see the problem as Islam and Muslims, but the problem is a massively declining birth rate and a massive influx of immigration, meaning that eventually the English become a minority in England. I think that is a genuine concern.
Brother, dawah.
Like, I think that's... I think it's a little bit heartless when people try and argue that I don't get to be concerned or scared about that, because I don't think you'd impose that on any other country. If any other country, gradually the native population were just shrinking in number and the immigrants were growing. I don't know, it is a concern.
Can you just fix this?
Yeah, sure, man.
I don't think it's picking you up properly.
So the deal is that characters like Tommy Robinson, Douglas Murray, even down to Julia Hartley-Brewer, the entire roster of Talk TV and GB News, I'm talking every producer on that channel, is basically pushing this narrative that I disagree with, which is it's Muslims, rather than it's an overall demographic crisis caused by two things. Loads of immigrants being brought in primarily because of capitalism, and no children being born by the native population. That's what's actually going on. It's Muslims and they want to impose Sharia. No, I don't think that's going on. I think Muslims are here and they're having babies because they are commanded to by God, while the native population aren't, and therefore there's more Muslims.
And there's another reason as well, is because we're not buying into this whole LGBT phenomena. We're sticking with traditional values as much as possible. Obviously we're under attack as well, but whilst you have the Church of England now, I think they're trying to drop the word church, LGBT, they're becoming, they're whitewashing that to make it more acceptable. And if the mother is the father and the father is the son and the son is the daughter, how are you expected to have a family when you've got the father trying to have a relation with a pogo stick?
Well, the church takes its cues, the Church of England especially, takes its cues from culture on how to think morally, right? And that is arse backwards, to phrase it that way, is that essentially you've got the clergy worried about being seen as backwards. They need to move with the times, so they read columns in The Guardian about LGBT acceptance and think, oh, we've got to catch up to this, which is crazy, because they're having their moral code dictated to them by atheist liberals, but they want to play catch up with the atheist liberals. So I mean, this is why I end up in Speaker's Corner every 2 weeks having a wonderful conversation with Muslims, and we've got my Catholic friends, but I'm kind of despairing because I was friends with 3 ministers throughout the COVID lockdowns because I thought they were immoral, so did these reverends, and we bonded over that. Because I don't think Jesus would have required a vaccine passport for you to go visit him. It sort of flew in the face of the parable of the leper, etc. And the same applies to Islam. I don't think you should have required a vaccine passport to do the Hajj pilgrimage. It was the pandemic interfered with people's faiths, and so when I met 3 reverends who could see it that way, I was really excited. And then Gaza happened. And their podcast the next week was about wokeness. And then there was another one about wokeness or climate change. And they never, ever spoke up for Gaza. And as a Christian or somebody that does believe in Jesus Christ, I'm having a bit of a crisis of knowing how to interpret this, because I look at the Muslims. I went along to the Free Palestine rally in my hometown, because we've got one of these towns that, according to Tommy Robinson's narrative, should be at each other's throats. We've got a significant Muslim population and a big white population. Everyone agrees on Gaza. It's actually, I'm really lucky. In my town, on the side of the church, there's a lovely, they write messages in chalk, like the kids can go and scroll stuff. And it's all Palestine. And it has been since October 7th. So we have this rather cohesive society in my town where I think people, their kids go to school together, they have conversations, and people aren't scared of one another.
Move, yeah? Yeah, let's move. I think we're in the thick of it, yeah.
I think I
Good job. Good job.
You tell me, bro. Over there's better, yeah?
Yeah.
But there's some right mobs erupting.
Bro, let's stay here. Oh, they're gonna be pissed off anyway.
Go in the back.
Another picture?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Can you take a picture?
Yes.
Fans.
Yes. Thank you.
I don't remember where we were.
You want to take a picture? Yeah? Yeah, that's fine. Come forward, come forward. It's a good time because when we start the conversations, then. My pleasure. Take it easy. Well,
That's really sweet.
Don't forget my mic, yeah? Speaking to this as well.
okay.
You gonna stand in straight? Are you,
Yeah, just Yeah, sorry, bro. You were saying?
Well, I don't know what I was saying. I don't know where we were. Do you?
I think typically it was this whole scapegoating of Muslims and making them the other. I wanted to add one point just in case certain people are like, but Muslims do believe in the Sharia. But the thing is, Sharia has become a buzzword
Yeah.
that's been loaded. It's actually a very incorrect term that gets used and passed it around. For example, if someone was to come to the UK, you don't say, oh, you're going to the UK where they believe in imprisoning you for life. No, yeah, but if you murder somebody, then you get imprisoned for life. Or if you go to America, you get the death penalty.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's for a murder. It's the same with Sharia law. There are certain punishments within Sharia law and this and that. But one of the points, and this is very important to understand, is, it says this in the Quran, there is no compulsion in religion. We are not allowed to force somebody to convert.
Yeah.
That goes against the idea of belief in God.
Yeah.
How can you force somebody to believe in God when belief itself is, it's got an element of subjectiveness as well as objectiveness as well to it. So that's one aspect. And another aspect is, let's just say non-Muslims were to live under Muslims. Because they say, oh, if we lived under you, this would have happened and that. Well, we have enough of a history to look and to inform you. And the primary source is the Quran and also the hadith of the sayings of the Prophet, peace be upon him. I'll just give you two narrations. Prophet, peace be upon him, said, if you oppress a non-Muslim who lives under you, yeah, under your rule, you have oppressed me.
Yeah.
And then he goes, and I'm sure you'll understand and appreciate, Muslims are up in arms when people even draw caricatures of the Prophet.
Yeah.
Let alone the Prophet saying, you oppress them, it's as if you're oppressing me. Then the Prophet goes further by saying, and if you oppress me, it is as if you are oppressing God. That's one aspect. Another saying of the Prophet, peace be upon him, says that if you take the rights of the dhimmi against somebody who's living under Muslim rule, if you take their rights, the Prophet will stand with them, to favor with them, to gain justice from you on the Day of Judgment.
Yeah.
Now this is just like a little dip. When we actually look at the implementation of this, for you, if you kill a non-Muslim under Muslim rule, it's under the Maliki school of thought, you're going to be put to death. You kill a non-Muslim under your rule, that's straight death for you. You might be saying, oh, what about the implementation? In the time of Umar bin Abdul Aziz, somebody did exactly this. Then he asked, it's up to you now. Do we kill the person, to the family members of the survived individual? And they opted to kill him. So a lot of people don't understand this. In fact, if a non-Muslim that's living under you gets imprisoned, we're told under, and this is in the Hanbali madhab, we're told that you are to exhaust your resources to free him. Now, I was speaking to somebody who was a very pro right-wing, Tommy as well, and he was surprised. I said,
I might have watched this last week.
Oh, really?
Actually. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I watched.
And he was and I was like, this is something unheard of here in the West. I mean, you have loads of examples. I mean, whether you agree with the notion of Shamima Begum or not, but the fact that Shamima Begum is somebody born in this country, is a British citizen.
Oh, don't worry. I can see the double standards.
And she comes back, and suddenly, even though she's groomed, she's underage. And Nick, most importantly, it emerged, and this was part of the case as well, that was led by a Kunji. The Secret Service of Canada facilitated her to go across the pond. And this is something that again was brought to the courts, and it still wasn't good enough.
Yeah, I mean, I do think sadly it's so confusing with the Tommy camp, because like I said to you, they are supposed to be on the tin not racist, because Nick Griffin and Jada Franson are the real racists, right? And so for years, Tommy Robinson was pushing this line that it's all about Islam, its belief system. And I'm sorry, that went right out the window last month when there's just gangs of white lads beating up anyone black or brown that they can and claiming it's got something to do with Muslims.
They're claiming that it was a stabbing in Southport.
It's just nonsense.
Allegedly he's Muslim, but then when they found out it was Axel Rudakabana, who again was a choir boy at the local church, the churches were unharmed.
It didn't seem to matter. It didn't seem to matter. It was always mosques that were going to be targeted, and that's why I'm so passionate about it, because, like, yeah, there are problems in our country because of our government. But you've ended up setting fire to a mosque. We need to talk about how that has happened, because you have diagnosed this problem completely wrong. And it's so immoral as well to just go out and destroy other people's property, especially places of worship. I mean, it's one of the lowest things that you can do. But I believe that these guys have all been trapped. So you've got all of these big prison sentences that are coming now, saying blasphemous things at protests and swearing at coppers and stuff. And they're very harsh sentences, which again is only going to make more grievances for the Tommy Robinson fans, because they've got
martyring those people.
They've got this narrative about two-tier policing. And I find it really shocking, because it was the same. They're going on two-tier policing. Muslims can do whatever they want.
I don't get that, because Palestinian flags are being banned, but not Israeli flags.
It's like, I don't think that they care. I think that they truly are just tapping into something racist, because did we not see a Muslim's head get stamped on by a copper at the beginning of that week? Like, I don't think Muslims are exempt from police doing nasty things. And the one that I really hammer home is Maria Hussein, the woman with the coconut placard.
Yes.
Because that is a satirical cartoon.
Yeah.
That's a satirical cartoon. And you've got this whole ecosystem set up on GB News and Tommy Robinson, all of them. They've got shows called Free Speech Nation, right? Andrew Doyle presents a show called Free Speech Nation. I think it's on Saturday night.
Biggest irony.
They would never defend Maria Hussein for holding up a cartoon. I think it's a decent bit of satire, personally. I think it worked.
I believe we can't take cartoons, but here again is another cartoon. But
well,
again,
exactly, and then they would bring out, but Charlie Hebdo, whatever. It's just nasty, because I can see, because I know people are genuinely concerned about these kind of things and were genuinely scared.
You know, with Charlie, you said Charlie Hebdo. What was very interesting, I think, it rang a bell that Charlie Hebdo, I think a couple of years later, made a anti-Semitic cartoon, and that was the reason that, you know, there were significant issues with that publication. A lot of people don't know that, because that gets brushed under the carpet. The New York Times, they had a cartoon of Benjamin Netanyahu as well, and they had to retract and apologize. In fact, Preeti Patel was depicted as a bull, again in satirical cartoon, but no, that was offensive to her Hindu faith. That was okay. They had to retract and apologize or whatnot. But when it comes to this, we're supposed to be.
I actually think that one of Tommy Robinson's sort of objectives is, because we talk about British values a lot, right? What are British values? They're being eroded, blah, 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 blah. I think he's trying to impose that the right to draw offensive cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad is a British value, which I would dispute. I do not think it is within Britain. I think that, you should legally be allowed to do it, because we're not an Islamic country. It would really make sense to have that as a law preventing you from doing it. But in terms of, is it good moral behaviour? No, absolutely not. You're just trying to offend people, and you know it'll work. And what other benefit could there be to this? All you're trying to do is provoke a reaction. And similarly, Hudi is Allah, walking through the streets screaming that, right? I think this is a really denigrated British society. Because
That wasn't banned, but then Allahu Akbar, apparently they want to criminalize that.
How dare you talk about two-tier policing whilst walking down the street in a mob of thousands of people committing an open hate crime.
Yeah.
It's a hate crime to say that. I can't get away with saying stuff like that and expect to not get arrested. So, but yeah, there's a victim consciousness. I mean, I also think there's one for like Black Lives Matter is supposed to sort of inculcate black people into seeing them as downtrodden. And there's a lot of these. And I think faith is the only way out of it, really. You've got to understand that, life is hard. Deal with it. But you don't get to identify as being a victim.
Well, I think definitely I was going to say, what could possibly be the solution, but I think this is the solution. That when you have people that understand and have been present in both sides, what they've learned, what they've observed, sharing that observation and having this dialogue in places in the UK, like obviously Hyde Park, the Speaker's Corner, which definitely has its pros. I know people like to promote its negatives as well, but
that's great. Yeah, this is an awesome tradition.
And I think we should definitely keep it up, and I think we are definitely in the spirit of Speaker's Corner, talking about the things that actually matter.
Yeah, I think, well, observably, I don't think that they want this happening. I don't think that they want us to have friendly conversations. And I do think that this is how we solve the world's problems, is by everyone talking. I genuinely believe that the Tommy Robinson fans are scared to talk to either me or you. Genuinely scared. I know you engaged with one last week, but
is it because of? It's definitely not that.
It's because I think when you're sure of what your beliefs are, it just kind of shows.
Yeah.
And because I'm standing on a box there, looking people dead in the eye, saying, I'm here to debate, and a key part of it is, I don't think that I'm right about everything, but I do think that I've spotted a problem. And I think by standing on this box, I can demonstrate that it's a real problem. And so people yell these questions like, well, where should the Israelis go? Where should they move to? And I go, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because it's not up to me. But I can see that there's a problem, and I can see that you guys get very, very angry about it. I think that this is really sacred ground, because I don't know that we really got into the story, but I went down to Tommy Robinson rallies with the specific intention of saying, guys, this is a sham. And I got arrested and assaulted at 2 different rallies. So the point is, I don't have the freedom to do that, because either the police will intervene or the stewards will intervene. Where am I going to get that message out? I get banned from the internet as well, so it is only here, and that's why I'm using this spot to do this. And I did it once the week after it happened to me, and then I've been coming back every 2 weeks because it's awesome, and it is almost a little bit sad that it doesn't tend to be English people like me. Like I'm trying to be a bit of an ambassador and say, because the Tommy guys will say that Speaker's Corner has been taken over by Muslims.
Yeah.
It's like, I think they're just the people that are using it effectively. You're perfectly free to do the same thing, but you're not.
Yeah.
Like, if you want these traditions to be upheld, then uphold them.
Come on down,
Come
like
and do it.
Bruce Forsyth would say.
Yeah, like my main objective here, it's not necessarily like to win in any way, or even to convince anyone. It is to get some good footage of these weird meltdowns. But it's just to keep this place buzzing, because I love doing it on this Sunday. It's a great resource for me. I think it's really like clean, wholesome fun. And another observation about the Tommy guys, I knew that I wasn't going to get any trouble with them the day after the riots, because they were all going to be hungover.
Oh.
None of them were going to be here.
Man with a plan.
Yeah, no, because they're all in, they're all in bad habits, and I think that's ultimately what it is. When they say stuff like, it's a foreign conflict, why should we care? They're bragging about being illiterate. Because you've had nearly a year of 1 million people on the streets every week saying it's a genocide. Really simple message.
Yeah.
Very, very simple. It's a genocide. Go do your own research, and you should join us. Really.
Yes, precisely.
Because there's no complexity to it. It is black and white. And the Tommy Robinson crowd, or the Reform UK voters, I think they're incredibly stubborn, and it's quite nasty at this point, because no one really has any excuse. You can't say that you haven't heard of Israel-Palestine. So why haven't you read a book on it? It's the first thing I did October 7th was I ordered a couple of books because I didn't know the history. Because we don't get taught it. And I don't see why everyone else doesn't have the same responsibility to do that. You don't get to have an opinion on it if you don't know anything about it. There was this guy kept bringing up October 7th. I said, well, what was the last act of Palestinian resistance before that? Do you know? No, you don't know about the Great March of Return. You don't know about several hundred Palestinians waving white flags and then getting shot.
Yes.
You don't know any of this, do you? Because you've been told history started on this date. And I think it's pretty unconscionable because you're declaring yourself illiterate and you're saying I'm proud of it. And I really do find that crowd does that. They say we're English and we know it, and therefore we have the right to not learn about anything going on around the world. So yeah, I'll say it's a depressing state. I come down here and talk to Muslims. I'm like, these guys are nice and eloquent. Wish the British could be a bit more like that.
Well, I think you've definitely tapped into a few kind of solutions for us to kind of wrap up, which is come down to places that are encouraging conversation, debate. If you're thinking that Muslims are taking over, come contribute, because it's, even in psychology, they say that if you're interacting with somebody face to face, there's more chance of you actually knowing the other person. The chance of hate is very low.
Yeah.
Screen time and taking shorts and those videos, and now with the algorithm you're in a kind of echo chamber as well. That doesn't help. And like you said, when there's something you don't know, read a book about it.
They're also financially incentivized as well. I noticed that a lot of these accounts that are sort of adjacent to me, David Vance, David Atherton are very key
definitely.
ones, right? They're being paid by Twitter. As soon as Elon took over Twitter and there was this monetization thing, I looked at these guys' timelines after October 7th. They're earning money for sharing anti-Muslim propaganda. And some of it's been completely vile. You just take any video of anyone who's not white, anyone who looks a bit brown, doing something horrible, and you just put the word Syrian. Syrian refugee who does this. It's like, that doesn't look like a Syrian to me, because they've actually got fairly light skin. What you're doing is you're putting a little video of someone doing something horrible, the country bordering Palestine, so that, you know, people think of people like from that region as barbaric. And I can see it clear as day, and I think, yeah, you know, accepting a check to do that is so disgusting. It's really disgusting. But at the same time, they can't beat us. We have Speaker's Corner, and they're scared to do Speaker's Corner. And I think that will work to our benefit in time. Because I'm saying, stop being a coward, come down here and debate me. And they won't do it. And we can only grow, I think.
That's why, Nick, God bless you, and hopefully we meet more people like yourselves, and hopefully we see a growing of such conversations, and we definitely need to hear more of this and see more of this for obviously communities to come together. And hopefully we can have a chat again sometime.
Absolutely. It's been beautiful.
Fantastic.
Till next time.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you. I'm just going to take the microphone off.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Assalamu alaikum, bro. You right?
A bit late in the day to engage with you.
Yeah.
I'm going to go find Sean.
Yeah. Take it easy, bro.
See you again.
How are you? All right?
Do you want to wrap up anything?
Nah, I'm good, bro. I thought he was going to start something. How are you doing? Yeah? MashaAllah.
Smile, bro. Your camera.
How's your day? Yeah? MashaAllah. Have you... Huh? Yeah, mashallah. He's come after a long time. Very long.